I never expected to find my first love's melody in the hands of a poor girl. It was a day like no other, one where the sky hung heavy and gray, matching the weight in my chest. I still remember the smell of rain-soaked earth and the distant sound of a street vendor's call, but all my senses were sharpened by a strange pull, the kind that coils tight in your gut. I will never forget the moment my eyes landed on her. She was playing a weathered guitar, the strings frayed but her fingers danced across them like a wildfire. The notes she produced hung in the air, shivering, as if weaving a spell. The crowd was drawn to her. It was a mix of onlookers, their curiosity thick and palpable. I stood there, heart thudding, feeling like a ghost in the background. Her voice cut through the murmur, a haunting echo of my past. I could see weariness etched on her face, a brightness swallowed by shadows. Yet, when she sang, it was a mix of pain and beauty. Something deep tugged at my heart. I recognized that melody. It was mine, a piece of my lost youth. Memories of my first love, Mia, rushed back like a wave crashing against jagged rocks. She had the same passion, the same wild spark. Those times we would write songs together, late nights illuminated by our hopes and dreams. But Mia was gone, taken from me too soon. I never thought I'd hear her song again. Not in the hands of a poor girl with dirt beneath her nails and tears sparkling in her eyes. Suddenly, the girl's performance ended abruptly. She looked up, the world tearing her gaze away, uncertain as a soft breeze rustled through the bystanders. In that silence, I felt my heart race. What was happening? The collective gasp from the crowd felt electric, palpable. A man elbowed his way forward, his face twisted in a mix of surprise and anger. "Stop!" he shouted, breaking the spell. "That's not yours." Shock rippled through the audience. I clutched my chest, breath catching like a fish out of water. Who was this girl? How did she know? My mind raced with questions. Was she connected to Mia? Was it fate that brushed our paths together in this moment? The girl flinched at the accusation, tremors shaking her shoulders. But instead of backing down, she squared her jaw and defiantly lifted her chin. In that moment, I saw a glimpse of my first love, strong, resilient. It ignited something inside me, a flicker of hope amidst the chaos. But then her eyes flickered past me, searching, almost pleading. What did she see? Who was she really looking for? A knot of urgency twisted within me as I stepped forward, wanting to protect her, to confront the man who accused her. A move I knew could change everything, yet I hesitated. The tension was thick, an electric current crackling between us. The crowd held its breath, every heartbeat echoing in the silence. I knew I had to act, but how could I step into this tangled web of past and present? Did that melody belong to me, or had it wedged itself deep within the girl who held my first love's heart? I felt the weight of my choices pressing down, chilling me to my core. Could she save me from my own ghosts, or was she merely a reflection of all I lost? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The crowd pulsed, a living organism caught in the throes of shock and disbelief. The man who had interrupted the girl's performance loomed like a dark shadow, and I could feel everyone's eyes darting between him and the girl, tension thickening the air. I wanted to shout, to stand against this unfairness, to rally everyone behind her, but fear burrowed its icy fingers around my throat, silencing my voice. Why do you think you can just take someone else's song? The man sneered, his tone bitter and accusatory. The girl's back stiffened, and I caught a glimpse of rebellion in her eyes. She didn't back down, even as the murmur of the crowd shifted into a buzz of judgment. I could see her holding on to something fragile within, perhaps the hope that maybe, just maybe, this moment would change everything. "Maybe it's not just your song," she replied, a waver in her voice but striking with conviction. My heart swelled with admiration, a contradiction to the despair that clawed at my insides. Her defiance reminded me of Mia, how we would sit together and argue over the meaning of words in our lyrics, how we crafted songs out of every bittersweet moment. I wanted to protect this girl, to wrap her in the warmth of encouragement, to remind her there was still beauty in vulnerability. "Let us take this somewhere else," I found my voice, stepping into the thrumming chaos. The crowd silenced as I approached, sensing the electric pulse of a storm brewing. Suddenly, a rarity slipped from my lips, my own desire for clarity. "We can figure this out. Please." I turned to the girl, desperation pooling in my gaze. "I want to understand." All eyes shifted to her, anticipation hanging heavy like impending rain. The girl's stare met mine, shock and something akin to surprise flickering in her expression. I had entered uncharted territory, and for the first time, I felt a surge of connection that went beyond words, a shared understanding of lost melodies and longing. Before she could respond, a woman from the crowd stepped forward, her face softening as she approached the girl. "He's right. We can help you," she offered, her voice warm, cutting through the tense atmosphere like sunlight after a storm. It was a simple act of kindness that broke the fortress of judgment surrounding us, a reminder that even in the bleakest moments, compassion could still reign. I watched as the girl's shoulders relaxed slightly, her defenses softening. She nodded slowly, embodying a childlike hope, a spark of belief in the humanity that surrounded her. "Who are you?" she asked, the vulnerability in her voice tugging at my heart. Her question echoed beyond mere identity. It was about belonging, about connection. "I'm the man," began, but the woman silenced him with a gentle lift of her hand. "It doesn't matter who he is. It matters who you are," the woman insisted. "You have a gift, and no one can take that from you." The crowd shifted again, curiosity mingling with admiration in the air. They began to converge around us, drawn by the warmth ignited by the woman's words. Somewhere in the din, I could hear whispers of encouragement, the budding trust starting to take root. "Play it again. Please," I urged to the girl, my heart racing. "Not for him or anyone else, but for you." My plea hung in the air, a fragile caterpillar ready to emerge, to reveal something beautiful. She looked down at her guitar, hesitant, but then lifted her chin, threaded with newfound resolve. "Okay," she whispered, facing the crowd. "But I want to share something more, something that feels deep." As she began to pluck the strings, I felt an uncoiling in my chest, a mixture of fear and hope merging into a tangible force. The melody filled the air, richer this time, layered with her pain and strength. Each note sang of stories untold, weaving through the heartstrings of those who listened. My heart resonated with the harmony, a bridge forming between the past and a present I had almost lost, but as I closed my eyes, celebrating this moment of connection, a sudden cry pierced the warm atmosphere. "Stop!" a voice shouted from the edge of the gathering. It was a familiar voice, one I had long thought buried beneath years of regret and sorrow. My heart tightened as I opened my eyes, the soothing notes crashing to a halt like waves against cruel rocks. There she stood, a specter from my past, Mia's sister, Mara, her presence wrapping around me like a ghostly embrace. What was she doing here? My mind raced, confusion and longing flooding in like the sudden onrush of a storm. The world around me began to blur as I struggled to piece together this moment, my heart pounding against the reality that my past was rushing back to reclaim me. "Stop everything, now." Mara's voice cut through the silence, and in that instant, standing at the crossroads of love and loss, I realized I had stepped into uncharted territory where melodies of the past collided with the reality of my present, unraveling every thread I thought secure. The crowd fell into an uneasy silence as Mara's words echoed like thunder against the silence. I could hardly breathe, her presence a tidal wave crashing into the delicate moment that the girl now so much more than just a stranger had created. It sent tremors through the people gathered, lighting their eyes with both concern and curiosity, yet I felt utterly paralyzed, lost in a whirlpool of memories and regret. I hadn't seen Mara in years, her absence a shadow always lingering just beneath the surface of my memories of Mia. But here she was, her expression unreadable, a portrait of pain and accusation woven into the lines on her face. What did she want? My thoughts spiraled in chaotic loops. I couldn't bear the thought of this girl being pulled into the orb of our tangled history. Why would you stop her? I croaked, my voice hoarse with anguish and confusion. She's just trying to express herself. She deserves. Mara's laughter was bitter, cutting through the shared hope that had just begun to blossom. Do you think that's how it works? As if the universe hands out gifts without a price. The girl clutched her guitar tighter, her eyes darting between us, the uncertainty creeping back into her expression like shadows sliding over light. I could see it in her gaze, a flicker of fear, buried beneath the bravado she had summoned just moments before. It felt like everything was slipping away again, the fragile connection we had started to build fracturing with every heartbeat. Mara, please, I pleaded, stepping hastily to bridge the widening chasm between her and the girl. This isn't about us. Let her find her voice. And what about Mia? Mara's voice rang sharp, rejecting my attempt to redirect this storm. What about the songs she lost when you walked away? The words struck like arrows, each one cutting deeper into the festering wounds I had tried to heal alone. I know, and I'm sorry, I stammered, the weight of the past threatening to drag me into its depths. But I can't change what has happened. I'm here for what? To let another girl feel the fleeting thrill of creation, just to abandon her too? What makes her any different? My chest tightened. I looked back at the girl, her face paled, the defiance replaced by uncertainty like a flame about to be extinguished. Mara, I began, but she continued, her voice rising again, slicing through the tension hanging thick in the air. You think you can fix things? By being here, playing the savior? Your actions don't amount to words. You left. You chose to leave us behind. It doesn't have to be that way. I said, desperation pouring out of me, begging her to see that I was not the same boy I once was. I thought of Mia, her laughter, her songs, the way we lit up each other's worlds, and my heart twisted at the injustice of those memories. I remembered how easily she could write a melody from pain, a gift so potent it felt like magic. This girl, she has a voice, a sound that wants to break free. Please don't take that from her. Mara's gaze softened momentarily as she glanced back at the girl, whose eyes were now glistening with unshed tears, each drop a potential lost note belonging to her melody. I took a deep breath, catching hold of the space we were in, feeling the weight of everyone's expectations. Just listen, I urged, my voice low and steady. All of us. Despite the tension radiating between us, I could sense a trickle of hope remaining, feeding from the woman's earlier kindness. Together, we had the power, if only for a moment, to transmute pain into something beautiful. After what felt like an eternity, Mara finally nodded once, a gesture so subtle yet laden with significance. It was a moment of truce, and I could feel it reverberate through the crowd. I turned to the girl, my heart racing. Please, I said softly, play it again. With a shakiness that tugged at my own heartstrings, the girl lifted her guitar, and the first note sliced through the silence, tentative yet earnest. I closed my eyes again, focusing on the sound, the way it stirred something deep within, beckoning. Emotions I had long tried to bury. But just as the melody gained strength, a sudden rush of chaos disturbed the fragile realm we had created. Someone from the back shouted once more, shattering the reprieve. Hey! Are you coming or not? A young man stepped into the makeshift clearing, his eyes wild as he gestured to Mara. I watched, frozen, as the world around me shifted yet again. Was she really contemplating leaving? Who is that? The girl's voice wavered, breaking the song just as it soared. Mara, what is going on? I turned to her, fear clenching my gut. In that moment, everything hung in the balance: the music, the hope, and my connection to both the girl and my past. I felt Mara's gaze heavy as she inched backward, torn by the call of the unknown, and knew that whatever choice she made would alter everything. As she hesitated, my heart plummeted into darkness once more. The song had morphed into a melody of uncertainty, and I could only hope that the next note wouldn't be a goodbye I wasn't ready to face. The girl, the guitar still cradled in her arms, looked between Mara and the young man who intruded on what had become a critical juncture for all of us. I could see confusion knitting itself across her brow, the way shadows flicker across a room when encroaching night dims the light. "Mara, please," I urged, stepping closer, as if my presence could lend her strength to defy whatever call was pulling her away. "This moment is too important. You can't walk away now." But Mara's expression had shifted. I saw it in the flicker of her blue eyes, haunted and distant, as if she teetered between two worlds. Fear and desire warred within her, each with its own wretched weight. "I can't stay here," she said finally, her voice a whisper that echoed against the collective breath of the crowd. "What do you mean?" the girl asked, her confusion layered with heartbreak, the budding spirit of her song now caught in the crossfire of our turmoil. "Are you leaving?" The young man fidgeted, impatiently looking between us, his concern more for Mara than the moment unfolding. "You promised," he said, voice tense, as if urgency radiated from his very being. "We need you back." I could sense the crowd's collective heartbeat, a deep, anxious thrum that resonated with the unsaid words hanging like fog in the air. Their attention pooled on Mara, the person who had conjured this tension, who towered over the delicate wish for connection that the girl had just extended toward us. With a heavy swallow, Mara turned back to the girl, her expression pinched but softening. "You're talented," she breathed, and I could feel her coiled apprehension inches away. "Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Her voice faltered, hinting at all that lay unsaid between the sway of her affection for Mia and the emotions rattling her now. "Please. Don't leave me like this," the girl stammered, the edges of her voice trembling as she held the guitar tight against her chest like a lifeline. "You're everything I wanted for this song." In those words lay a truth sharp enough to cut, and I could see Mara wrestling with a ghost of guilt rooted deeper than any of us could fully understand. The flickers of light and shadow across her face mirrored the storm brewing in my own chest. A longing, a need to reconcile the pain of the past and the hope we now stood upon. It echoed everything I had been feeling since reclaiming my place in this space. Mara turned back to me, her eyes fierce, glowing with a fire stoked not just by anger, but by an overwhelming rush of memories. "You don't know what you're asking of me. To open old wounds without any promise of healing. We were ruined by our own choices." "I know," I replied, a tight grip around each word. "But the past doesn't have to define us. Look at her. She's trying to create something new, something beautiful. We owe it to Mia, to our pasts, to let others find their voices." The tension hung thick, and then a collective breath broke. The young man shifted, moving closer to Mara, and I recognized a tether that connected them, one established through shared stories and promises made. But it was more than that. It was a connection that was once woven through my own choice to walk away. The girl, emboldened by the emotion that swept over the crowd, began to strum again, her fingers dancing across the strings like a gentle rain, seeking to reclaim the song she had started. My heart leapt. With each note, she longed to share her voice with us, and, for a moment, she became the embodiment of hope, the very essence of what we all were yearning for, to shed the shadows of our past. Murmurs swept through the crowd, igniting a sense of solidarity as emotion fused like a tapestry, drawing everyone closer. Then, as Mara's expression seemed to shift, caught between the pull of the past and the whisper of a new beginning, a sudden realization dawned on her, and her eyes widened as if she had seen something she could not yet voice. "Mara?" I asked cautiously, but she didn't respond. I watched as the brilliance of understanding flashed across her face, a celestial moment where awakening met regret. In the stillness that settled over us, I dared to lean in closer. "What is it?" But the girl struck a final chord, an unexpected dissonance that shattered the moment into 1,000 uncertain shards, spilling into the silence that followed. Mara's eyes filled with tears, and with a trembling hand, she reached towards the girl. "Sing it," she urged, her voice hoarse, every syllable weighty with new possibilities. "Sing it again for Mia." And in that instant, right as the girl inhaled to unleash her voice once more, echoes of the past colliding with a quivering present, Mara suddenly stumbled backward, colliding with the young man, interrupting the chain with a breathless gasp. The crowd gasped, and I felt dread sweeping through my veins as if the universe itself had decided to conspire against us once more. My heart sank as Mara's revelation unraveled into chaos, pulling us further away from the hope we so desperately clung to. "Mara," I began, but she shook her head, her gaze distant as if a revelation thudded against her chest like an unwelcome truth, and I realized the seriousness of her departure. The melody of hope began to slip again, the girl's voice lost in uncertainty, and despair drizzled down like rain on a day I had thought would shine. A gut-wrenching truth hung in the air, asking questions that demanded answers, and just as the tension reached its peak, Mara turned to me, her words a haunting whisper as she said, "It's too late." And then, without looking back, she stepped further into the crowd, leaving me to grapple with everything she had just ignited. The girl's fingers wavered above the strings, and I now faced a darkness not just in the world around me but also the layers of regret blooming like weeds in the once soft meadow of my heart. Each soft note faded as my chest tightened, and an unexpected realization grounded me that no matter our efforts, some melodies could never be fully reclaimed. As the echoes of Mara's retreating footsteps faded into the growing din, the crowd shifted uneasily, a tide of uncertainty sweeping through them like a sudden gust of wind. The girl, clutching her guitar, appeared caught in a web of confusion and heartbreak, an innocent bystander swept into the tempest of emotions that had just collided. I could see her struggling to grasp the enormity of the moment and the rift that had opened not just between Mara and the young man, but also between all of us. "Mara!" I shouted, desperation clawing at my throat, but my voice was lost in the current of murmurs around us. The girl's eyes glistened as she stared after the figure that had sparked her dreams and now melted into the crowd. For a fleeting moment, I half expected her to call out, to beg Mara to stay, to share in the notes that chained her to the world, but instead, she sank onto a low stone wall, silent tears escaping down her cheeks, echoing the very spirit of the song she so desperately wished to sing. I approached her cautiously, sensing the fragility of the moment, our shared heartbreak a fragile thread binding us together. "Hey," I said softly, earlier bravado dwindling into gentleness. "It's okay." "Is it?" Her voice cracked, barely above a whisper, choked with heartbreak. She was supposed to help me. I thought her eyes met mine, immense pools of vulnerability mixed with a pain I hadn't expected to witness. Why did she leave? What did I do wrong? "No, it's not you," I replied, feeling my heart twist at the anguish stamped across her face. "Sometimes people have their own battles to fight. It's not about you. It's about what she has to face." But I just wanted. Her voice trailed off and the weight of unfulfilled dreams smothered her. I could see her grapple with not just the loss of a mentor but the shattering of an ideal. "I know," I murmured, trying to find the right words, the kind that might stitch the rifts threatening to swallow her whole. "You wanted to share something beautiful, something that could bring light. And that's more than enough. You have talent. You have a voice." Her gaze flickered briefly, hesitantly resting on the guitar that had become like an extension of her soul. It was a fragile moment, fraught with despair but illuminated by just a glimmer of hope. "What if I can't?" she breathed, her vulnerability both haunting and pure, pulling me deeper into her blossoming sorrow. "You'll find it," I encouraged, a gentle resolve gathering within me. "You just need to try again. We can find the melody, even if it's hard. Believe me, I've fought to reclaim my music, my voice." But deep inside me, I wondered if I truly believed my own words, if I had any power to draw out truth from the chaos that loomed, and then, a spark ignited in her eyes, a rebellion against the desolation that sought to entrap her. With newfound determination, she lifted her guitar, her fingers brushing the strings tentatively, as if testing for echoes of encouragement in the silence. "Can you help me?" she asked, her voice steadying like a whisper of summer air. "I can," I replied, feeling the fire in her spirit reignite something akin to my own long-muted passion. Perhaps here, in the ashes of despair, we could create something new. As she began to strum, the first notes emerged like shards of sunlight piercing through dark clouds. Together, we carved out a space to exist, forging a tentative bridge over the waters swirling and crashing beneath us. Her voice emerged shyly at first, quivering with emotion but gradually rising, taking flight as her confidence began to swell with each strum. But just as the beauty of our shared struggle began to weave a delicate tapestry, my heart dropped, an undeniable weight unfurling within me. I spotted Mara, a figure still hauntingly close yet undeniably aloof, her silhouette wreathed in the distance as she stood conferring with the young man, their gestures laced with urgency. "Mara!" I called out, my voice striking like a reed in a storm, but to no avail. The girl's voice, once filled with hope, faltered, cascading into silence. "What is wrong?" she asked, her fingers halting mid-strum. "It's Mara," I confessed, dread pooling in my gut. "Something is happening. I need to go to her." "Don't leave me," she begged, palpable fear flooding her gaze, and for a fleeting moment, I hesitated, torn between helping her unfurl the cords of her dreams and the haunting urgency that called me back to preserve the bonds of the past. With a heavy heart, I tore my gaze away from her, anguish writing across my features as I locked eyes with the girl. "Promise me you'll keep singing. Whatever happens, don't stop." "I'll try," she whispered, the word hanging between us, a fragile promise woven into our shared music. Darting through the crowd, I felt those strained ties to the past pull taut, a life raft teetering against the ever-rising tide. Mara was confused, yet determination flickered within her like embers awaiting a gust of wind. As I reached them, the world around me seemed to slow, time spilling like sand through my fingers. "Mara," I breathed, the urgency tinged with desperation. "What is happening? Where are you going?" But her gaze was filled with something other than I had expected. "I can't stay," she said, her voice trembling with conviction. "I need to face what I've left behind." Before I could reply, the young man shot me a glance, urgency coursing through him as he took a step back, shadows pooling around their uncertain dance. "Mara, don't do this," I pleaded, but just as I spoke, a flash erupted, a bright burst of light that erupted from the edges of the crowd, illuminating the darkness that had encased us all. In the fractured moment that followed, as I stepped closer to grasp Mara's hand, a shocking realization ripped through me. I saw the girl in the shadows not just distant but battling her own challenges. New chords reverberated around us, emotions caught in a symphony of unshared burdens, and in that instant, I realized the melody of our intertwined destinies was about to change forever. And before I could grasp what would happen next, Mara's eyes flickered with dread, and I understood that something precious might be lost amidst the newfound hope we sought. My heart raced, the tension throbbing like an old wound, a revelation born from chaos, and just like that, the darkness seeped in, promising a storm that we all might not survive. With every frantic pulse of my heart, I stood frozen, caught in the web of shifting allegiances. The shockwave from that burst of light cascaded through the crowd, igniting faces cast in shadows and flickering doubt. As I struggled to comprehend the moment, I was acutely aware of the girl who had poured her dreams into her music just moments before. She remained in the background, her hopeful eyes now veiled by uncertainty, caught between the light and the shadows. "Mara!" I shouted again, desperation clawing at my throat, but fear gripped my heart. The young man stepped closer, his posture tense, mirroring my rising anxiety. "Do you really have to go? We can face this together." My voice was urgent, my words tumbling out in a frantic race against the current of chaos swelling around us. Mara's expression wavered as she pushed back a lock of hair that fell across her face. "You don't understand," she murmured, her voice barely a whisper above the cacophony. "There are things I left behind that hold power over me. They need to be faced, or they'll haunt us forever." "Face them?" "Mara, you don't have to do this alone," I replied, a fierce protectiveness rising within me. "Whatever is waiting for you, we can confront it together. You're not alone in this." Her gaze, however, flickered to the girl behind me, a moment of recognition passing between them. "Sometimes, we have to let go to truly find ourselves," Mara said, her voice trembling but resolute, and I felt the ground beneath me shift. "No," I cried, desperation woven into my words. "You can't just abandon everything we built. You can't just leave." From the corner of my eye, I caught sight of the girl, her hands now trembling on the guitar's strings, eyes wide and brimming with unshed tears. The music she'd just begun to find was slipping from her grasp as if our emotions were too heavy to support such delicate chords. "Mara, please," I turned to the girl, "can't you say something?" But her voice, too, was caught in the web of this moment. She had just started to believe in her own power, and now it was as if the world sought to pluck her dreams from her fingers. All she could muster was a whisper, "I don't understand." In that heartbeat, recognition dawned on me. Mara's need to escape tied directly to the girl's search for validation. The weight of shared struggles knitted us together, pulling threads taut and fraying in unison. I thought of the music we had begun to weave, the fragile notes wrapped in the promise of a beautiful song, and I felt a bitter ache in my chest. "Mara, think about her." I gestured to the girl, whose guitar lay heavy against the burgeoning silence. "Think about what you're leaving behind." Mara's eyes softened, the storm inside her heart reflected in my own turmoil. Just then, the softest strum from the girl's guitar broke through the tension, a tentative note floating through the air, weaving a thread of hope. "I'll keep singing," she stammered. "Even if it's just for you, Mara. I'll find a way." And in that moment, I saw it, the flicker of possibility igniting hope in the darkest of corners. Mara hesitated, her heart a tempest wrapped in indecision. "I don't want to hurt you both," she whispered, her vulnerability cracking open the walls she had built around her heart. As the light around us faded, dimmed to a haunting glow, another flash pierced through the crowd. Sounds of muffled voices beckoned, a reminder that choices lay on the precipice, teetering on the brink of uncertainty. Shadows peeled away, leaving me with the fear of loss potent enough to suffocate. I took a step closer to Mara. "Whatever's out there, whatever you left behind, we'll face it together. I won't let you go through this alone," I pleaded, yearning for the past to stitch us into a cohesive future, a melody reborn in the face of heartbreak. But in that moment, an unsettling hush descended on the crowd as the horizon dimmed. I turned, drawn to the girl's guitar, relationship threads tightening around us, and noticed that a figure was starting to emerge from the dark, a specter I could not yet recognize. "Mara," I called softly, dread coiling in my gut as I peered into the growing shadows. What if suddenly, her eyes widened, a mixture of fear and recognition dawning. The shadows shifted more dramatically, as if alive, revealing the face that had long haunted her, the one she feared the most. "No," she gasped, retreating instinctively, the reality of her past crashing into our fragile present. My breath caught in my throat, and the realization settled like ice in my heart. This was the reckoning we had all feared, an embodiment of pain and memory that once again threatened to tear us apart. The girl's voice faltered, a haunting note lingering in the air, as we stood enraptured by the sudden unfolding tragedy, and just like that, the flicker of hope gave way to an expansive unknown, a new conflict emerging, and our fates now irrevocably intertwined with the shadows we could neither escape nor confront without the bittersweet truth rising to the surface. The figure manifested more clearly, stepping from the shadows like a ghost pulled from the depths of Mara's past. It was as if a heavy shroud of twilight had rolled in with them, dimming not just the light around us but our very faith in the moment. The girl's guitar trembled in her hands, strings vibrating uneasily as she mirrored the turmoil in our hearts. Mara, the name slipped from my lips as a frigid dread pooled in my stomach. Hearing the warmth in my voice taper into an echo dashed against the chill of recognition the painful contours of Mara's former life. "Mara, no." The words burst forth before I could rein them in, urgency overlapping with the disbelief settling in the air like fog. "You don't have to be afraid." But the girl behind me pressed closer, her eyes wide and shimmering with a deep uncertainty. "What do you mean?" she implored, her voice barely breaking through the crackling silence. Who is that?" Mara's gaze flickered between the specter and me, her expression morphed by a battle between fear and regret. "It's him," she whispered as though reliving a nightmare. "It's Tobias," the shadow interrupted with a sly smirk, stepping forward, and beneath the flickering lights, his eyes were cold, devoid of the warmth Mara had once known. "You're still haunted by the past, aren't you, Mara?" The air crackled with tension as he took one more step closer, reaching out as if he could pluck the heartstrings of her being. "Came to save you, did they? How naive." Mara stiffened, her fingers balling into fists as the ghosts of old fears resurfaced. "Why are you here?" Her voice trembled on the pulse of vulnerability. "I thought I left you behind." "You can't escape what lives inside you," he replied, every word a dagger that twisted deeper into the fracture of her heart. "Not with a new song or a new friend to cling to." I felt my heart beat a frantic rhythm against my ribs. This wasn't just an embarrassing echo of her past, it was a palpable confrontation threatening to engulf her into silence. "Mara, focus on the music, visualize what you want. You don't have to let him take you back, not after all this." I could feel the foundation of our connection tremble, almost buckling beneath the weight of terror, but even as I spoke, the girl stepped back, her eyes darting between us. "Mara, I don't understand what he means. Why is he mocking you?" Before Mara could respond, the tension swelled, and Tobias's voice filled the air with honeyed malice. "You really think that a forgotten melody can keep you safe? A little girl and her guitar?" His laughter was piercing, slipping through the cracks in our defenses like poison. "Look at her, she'll betray you just like the others have. You should be never assumed you could change." Mara flinched at his words. I could see the doubt creeping into her resolve, shadows looming heavily as memories twisted like thorns around her heart. "Stop it!" I shouted, desperation clawing at my throat. "She's not a pawn in your twisted game. She's a part of your healing. Mara, please." The girl's voice broke through the chaos, her guitar momentarily fallen into silence but still echoing with vibrant life in my mind. "I don't know everything, but I want to help you. I want you to fight." The tremor in her voice anchored me somehow, a reminder that even the smallest light could help pierce the shadows. Tobias turned his icy gaze toward her, mirth fading into something sharper. "You think you can help her? You're just another fleeting distraction. She'll abandon you, just like she abandoned me." "No!" I exclaimed, my resolve hardening as I stepped closer to Mara, who was locked in the grip of her memories. "You don't get to take her back. You don't understand who she's become." A flicker of resolve ignited in Mara's gaze, caught between determination and despair. But before she could speak, a soft whisper rippled through the air, more powerful than the menacing tones surrounding us. The girl picked up her guitar again, fingers hesitating momentarily before unleashing a single note pure and hauntingly beautiful, a call to rise from the ashes. With each chord she strummed, threads of hope began to knit themselves back together in the darkness. "Mara, you're braver than him. Music can mend broken pieces, it can be a refuge." The shadows felt momentarily tethered, as if woven with the music that drew from the depths of pain and inexplicable beauty. Tobias recoiled slightly, surprise lining his features, but the threat in his expression remained steadfast. "You think a little song can change the inevitable? You think this girl is anything more than a fleeting echo?" Mara's eyes lit, reflecting a surge of emotions warring inside her. This was her moment. The sound of freedom pressed against the walls of her confinement. But before she could respond, Tobias stepped forward, drawing dangerously close. "You want to fight against the inevitable?" He delivered the words with a venomous edge, the shadows stretching as a palpable silence lingered in the air. "Fine. But remember, you can never outrun who you are, and I will be waiting." In a rush of color and sound, the shadows around him thickened, encroaching like a riptide pulling away something I couldn't quite grasp. "Mara!" I shouted as he began to dissolve back into darkness, and just like that, my heart plummeted once more into the unknown. The girl played a desperate melody, an anthem of hope attempting to grip the shards left behind. But as the last note lingered in the air, Mara's gaze darted through the ghostly remnants of her past. I need to know, she murmured, and the fear of her own possibility hung between us like a tether on its last thread. What if he is right? And as my heart thundered against the confines of the chaotic space where we stood, her question loomed larger than the shadows themselves. The girl's fingers slowed over the strings, uncertainty creeping back in, echoing unanswered doubts that twisted through my own heart. The melody still shimmered on the horizon, but uncertainty swamped my every thought as I faced the uncertainty swathed in white-knuckled fear. Who would emerge from the wreckage? Who would face the ghosts waiting to be summoned into the light? The echoes of the last note hung palpably in the air, a vibrant, lingering reminder of what was at stake. Mara's eyes were wide, the tempest of emotions swirling deeper within her, reflecting both the light of hope and the dark shadows that threatened to engulf her. I searched her face, desperate to anchor her in this moment so much hung in the balance, and I became acutely aware of the fragility surrounding us. Mara, look at me. I reached for her hand, willing her to feel the beat of my pulse, to tether herself to my presence despite the storm raging in her heart. He can't control you anymore. You have the power to create a new song, one that belongs to you. But the uncertainty in her gaze caught me off guard, like a sudden gust of wind that threatens to rip you from your place. But what if the song I create only echoes his bitterness? She whispered, vulnerability laying itself bare like a wound that could reopen at any moment. Gratitude surged through me at the girl's courage, but I felt a tight knot of fear tightening in my chest, worried about how fragile this moment truly was. Then we'll write a better one together, the girl said, her fingers trembling against the strings, each unguarded note spilling forth colors of emotion. But not if you don't believe it yourself. Mara's breath hitched, torn between the weight of her past and the flicker of possibility swirling in the air. I sensed her longing to break free, to claim her voice, yet the fear tethered her like a worn anchor, dragging her beneath the turbulent waves. You have this music inside you, I urged, willing myself to be a lighthouse in her storm. Let it guide you, not the shadows. Show him who you've become. You're not alone. Yet even as I spoke, the shadows around us began to close in again, a creeping force that felt all too familiar. With a quick glance, I caught sight of Tobias's smirk beginning to re-emerge, the darkness still draped around him like a cloak of inevitability. You think you can drown out the past with a little noise? He taunted, his voice slick with disdain. How poetic. But remember, little girl, he directed his gaze back to Mara, the heart holds its own melody. It knows every note of your sorrow, every mistake. Mara flinched, and in that moment of hesitation, I felt something deep within me crack. The memories of my own struggles echoed here, battles against self-doubt, against fragments of love distorted by time. You don't understand, music can be a revolution. I shouted, my voice laced with urgency and a yearning to pull her back from the brink. As Tobias stepped forward, the shadows swirling around him thickened into a tempest of darkness that made my heart race. Are you truly ready to face the music, Mara? The mockery in his tone dripped like poison, and I could feel her resolve wavering under the weight of his words. What if my melody is broken? She asked, each word almost an apology to the very air around us. Then we'll fix it together, I insisted, my heart pounding like a drum. We'll bridge the gaps and turn that pain into something beautiful. The girl by her side nodded, strumming a gentle harmony that wrapped around us like a warm embrace. Every note tells a story, and every story has its rhythm. Trust in the journey, not the fear. Tobias sneered, but the fight within Mara began to stir, fueled by that flicker of faith as her eyes met mine for a brief heartbeat. You're right, she said, each syllable a treasure uncovering a hidden truth. I have the power to create something new. But then Tobias spoke again, a cold blade slicing through the budding hope. Remember what lies behind you, Mara. I will always be there. You can't escape the past. In a sudden moment of clarity, I took a step forward, letting the rush of determination course through me. But we can transform it. You don't belong to him anymore, you belong to your own melody. What will it be? The air thickened as Mara's breathing sharpened, uncertainty twisting her expression like a shadow ballet in twilight. And then, with a shaky breath, she picked up the courage that lay wrapped in the girl's chords, her voice trembling as she began to speak again. But before she could form her thoughts, a chilling wind surged through the air, sweeping the last notes from the guitar. Darkness surged closer, as if the shadows themselves were listening, waiting to draw us back. The territorial sense of fear clawed at my insides. "Mara!" I cried out, panicking as I felt the energy shift. The specters of memories began to swirl violently, pulling each of us further into the depths of despair. Then, in a blinding flash, the shadows recoiled, and something hit the ground beside me, a crumpled piece of paper shot from the depths of darkness, landing right at my feet. An echo of familiarity coursed through me as I bent down, my hands trembling as I unfolded it. The words scrawled across the paper shattered the terrain of uncertainty further. "Your first love cannot always be forgotten. The melody is yours to reclaim." A chill crept up my spine as the memories tied to that writing washed over me, bringing a rush of turmoil. Whose words were these? And as I looked back up at Mara, fear wrapped around her like a turbulent sea. I knew we were standing on the precipice of something life-changing, our hearts fused in the eye of the storm, teetering between the darkness and the haunting notes of a melody yet to be found. The air felt charged, crackling with the weight of unspoken truths and haunting memories. I clutched the crumpled paper tighter, its edges biting into my palms, as the words stampeded through my mind like a ghostly orchestra. "Your first love cannot always be forgotten." Mara's eyes widened upon seeing the paper, her breath catching in her throat. "What is that?" she asked, each word heavy with dread and curiosity. I hesitated, instinctively torn between revealing the truth buried within the scrawl and protecting myself from the revelations that lay beneath it. The truth was so raw, so intertwined with my own chains of fear and longing. "It's a message," I finally whispered, feeling the balloon of tension swell in our shared space. "From who?" Her voice was delicate, yet weighed down by the storm that brewed around us. "Tobias's past, perhaps." But even as the words left my lips, I knew they were not the right answer. The connection between Tobias and my own past felt deeper, ominous, and painfully familiar. The shadows around us quivered, anticipating the truth. Without letting go of the note, I scanned the horizon, searching for the outlines of safety amidst the disarray, but it was in vain. The tempest of Tobias's darkness was relentless as he sneered, "You're clutching at scraps," as if they could offer you clarity. Mara shifted uneasily, her gaze darting between Tobias and me. "Please, just tell me," she implored, her voice steadying even as her heart tremored with uncertainty. Taking a deep breath, I raised the note so she could see the words. "I thought I could leave everything behind, but the past, our past, has a funny way of creeping up on you." This voice, I recognize it. The faces of a distant memory cascaded through my mind, shrouding me in a mixture of nostalgia and regret. "Mara, are you willing to share your own?" The plea hung in the air, wrapped in desperation and a hint of hope. "You're not alone." Her hands trembled, but I saw the spark ignite just beneath the surface. "Before I can do that, you must," she hesitated, biting her lip, "you must trust me." "Trust you?" Tobias scoffed, his derision a dagger. "Trust is a fleeting notion, a melody remembered in fragments." The truth of his words gnawed at me. Trust, the very foundation we needed to rise above the past, felt so fragile, as if it could shatter like glass. I met Mara's gaze, determination thrumming in my chest as I nodded, my voice steady. "I trust you to find your song, Mara. I trust you to reveal whatever darkness you've been keeping, even if it pains you." She closed her eyes, searching the depths of her soul, fighting against the animosity that seemed to suffocate her spirit. There were melodies I thought I'd buried, each one echoing with pain I've tried to forget. But she paused, the tension around us tightening like a noose. "Maybe they can guide me to something more." I stepped closer, grateful that she was willing to speak, to confront the very thing that had constructed her silence for so long. "Let your voice be the light. Share it with me." As she drew an unsteady breath, fears coiling in tandem with her courage, Tobias stepped forward, growing more ominous with each heartbeat. "You can't unleash your sorrow without inviting turmoil. You'll only find yourself scattered amongst your own dissonance. With palpable resolve, Mara replied, it's time to confront that turmoil. Suddenly, in that charged atmosphere, her fingers danced along the strings of the guitar again, uncertain yet purpose-driven. The sound began soft, weaving a faint melody that resonated with longing and loss. With each note, the shadows seemed to pull back slightly, as if they, too, were drawn to the music, but then an unexpected tremor raced through the ground beneath us. The tension shifted again, a new presence enhancing the darkness. The shadows swirled tightly, roiling with a heavier menace as a chilling laugh filled the air. I looked over and found Tobias's expression morph into something more sinister, something hungry. You tread into territory you don't understand, he sneered, his voice coated with malice. But let us see how strong your little rebellion truly is. In an instant, he reached out, hands forward, summoning a gust of raw energy that surged toward us like a tidal wave. Mara's music faltered, the notes splintering into silence as the darkness threatened to engulf us once again. Mara! I shouted, lunging instinctively toward her as the shadows writhed, determined to pull us under. But it was then that I felt a sudden warmth envelop my hand. Mara had grasped it tightly, anchoring herself to the flickering hope between us. Stay with me, she breathed, her voice wavering yet resolute. Struggling against the waves of despair, she leaned into her music once more, and with the spirit of her melody impassioned, the chorus of her emotions began to rise, murmurings of joy intermingled with sorrow, infusing the air with an unshakable energy. It was powerful, invigorating, and as the music washed over us, the shadows began to retreat, its dissonance wavering. However, just as the glimmer of victory beckoned, a sudden realization jolted through me like ice water: the handwriting on that paper was eerily familiar. I glanced at it once more, and a name sprang forth unbidden from deep within my heart, a name that sent a flicker of anguish through my veins. A name I thought I'd buried, a name entwined with that first love I had never truly let go. Before I could utter it, however, the darkness recoiled, morphing into a tangled figure cloaked in obsidian despair, lingering just behind Tobias. My heart pounded furiously against my ribs, for I recognized the shadows of my past moving into view, an omen of the chaos ahead. Mara, I gasped, my voice ripping through the storm, realization dawning upon me like a bitter truth. We must fight together. The past is not just yours. It haunts both of us. But her expression flickered between strength and fear as the shadows threatened to swallow us whole. And in that moment of despair, the note crumpled in my hand became more than a reminder of loss. It was a spark of a collision that would inevitably change everything. As the haunting song of her heart began anew, I faced the shadows surrounding us, knowing there was no turning back. Together, we had awakened something far more dangerous than our fears, and as Mara's melody interwove with my own, we prepared to confront the echo of our first love, an echo that promised to resonate with darkness, yet held the potential to guide us toward freedom. The air around us crackled with electricity, tension coiling like a snake ready to strike as Mara faced the figure of Tobias, a ghost from her past resurrected by the shadows. The weight of uncertainty pressed heavily on my chest, concern and dread blending into a single knot. I glanced at the girl holding her guitar, her grip steady but her eyes wide with fear. We were all on the brink of a precipice, suspended between the monsoon of our pasts and the fragile light of hope. Together, I whispered to Mara, squeezing her hand tightly. We can't let him take control. We're stronger than we know. Her gaze flickered to mine, the storm within her gradually giving way to the shimmer of determination. I saw it, the spark igniting her courage, even as the shadows loomed ominously around us. With a deep breath, Mara nodded, and for the first time, I felt her fear transform into resolve. The music she started to weave was no longer tentative, it was bold and defiant, each note a declaration, a promise to reclaim her voice. I could feel it resonating through me, a surge of warmth against the chill that Tobias's presence inflicted on us. As she began to play, the melody expanded, filling the space with echoes of the past pain interwoven with beauty. It was as if every chord summoned the very essence of what we had lost, but it transformed into something profound, something new. The shadows recoiled momentarily, flickering like an unsettling flame. Tobias stepped forward, disdain smearing his features. Such naivete. You think you can fight me with music? Your little rebellion won't last against the darkness I've left in you. His voice dripped with malice, crawling under my skin like frostbite. But I could sense the wavering in his tone, the uncertainty creeping in as Mara poured her heart into her song. Listen to the truth. I called out, feeling the chorus of emotions rise. This isn't just Mara's fight. It's all of ours. We all carry pieces of the darkness. But it's time to turn that darkness into light. The girl stepped in closer, her fingers gliding over her guitar strings, each note layering upon Mara's melody, harmonizing into a symphony that felt like a breath of fresh air against the shadows smothering us. You don't have power over us, she declared, her resolve shining like a beacon. And with those words, I saw the shadows begin to falter, tremors running through their forms. Not anymore. Mara echoed, pushing through the chaos of emotions that threatened to overwhelm her. We won't let the pain define us. We'll carve new melodies from the remnants of what we once were. The strength in her voice rang clearer than a bell, each note gaining potency, resonating within the hearts of those who listened, stirring courage and defiance. The shadows writhed, uncertainty coursing through Tobias's expression. You think you can rewrite your history? You're just prolonging the inevitable. The mocking tone in his voice grew sharper, but I could feel cracks expanding in the foundation of his menace. No. This is our moment. I shouted, desperate energy coursing through my veins, the adrenaline pushing me to face the darkness alongside Mara and the girl. There's healing in the music, in the reflection of our scars. As we began to weave a tapestry of sounds, Mara's melody merging seamlessly with the girl's strumming, the shadows coalesced into a chaotic tempest, flickering and thrumming. Yet they dimmed, the warmth of our combined strength pushing through the darkness. Tobias's laughter carried an echo of fear, and I could see it in the way he hesitated, the shadows around him struggling against the light we created. The palpable courage radiating from our unity transformed this moment into a delicate balance, a triumphant crescendo. In that instant, I felt it, a surge of connection that intertwined us. Each note, each chord, resonated with memories, with loss and regret, but most importantly, with hope. I turned toward the girl, locking eyes, and in that deep understanding, I knew we would rise together. With each verse, we layered our experiences and fears into something far greater, an anthem of resilience reverberating through our hearts. You can't take that away, I yelled to Tobias, a final stand igniting the air as we poured our souls into that shared melody. We reclaim the songs of our lives, we are more than our past. And then, with one final note, a hauntingly beautiful chord suspended in the air, everything shattered. The shadows fractured, the darkness imploding upon itself as our shared voice surged forth, sweeping the last remnants of Tobias's hold away. As the echoes faded and silence fell like a gentle blanket upon our shoulders, I opened my eyes, breathless, in disbelief and joy. The past didn't disappear, but it transformed, shaped into something powerful and illuminating. There, standing shoulder to shoulder with Mara and the girl, I felt a sense of unity, a connection that reminded me we are all interwoven in our struggles and triumphs. Tobias had retreated, swallowed by the very shadows that granted him power. But beyond the ghostly figure, the echoes of our first loves and longings reverberated, bridging the gap between what we had once lost and what we had reclaimed. In the moments that followed, Mara turned to me, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Thank you," she breathed, a raw vulnerability in her tone. "I thought I had to face it alone, but I didn't." She looked at the girl, who was still cradling her guitar, now adorned with the remnants of a song never truly forgotten. "And neither did you." Together, we found a way, the girl chimed softly, her confidence steadily blooming, and I knew that the melody we had shared would echo through our lives like a gentle reminder of our strength. In that fleeting moment, I realized that sometimes, closure isn't about erasing the past, it's about embracing it and allowing it to weave moments of beauty into a tapestry of existence we continue to write daily. And as I took a deep breath, feeling the warm glow of understanding wash over me, I knew we had carved our path back to each other, an everlasting harmony born from the ashes of despair, each of us now forever linked not just by our struggles but by the hope that arose within the notes we had chosen to reclaim. As the sun dipped beneath the horizon and warmth seeped back into our hearts, the final line of the song rang clear in our minds, echoing in our souls. Together, we can make music from our scars, turning shadows into a vibrant dance of light.